Welcome everybody to another GYLS Momentum Session. Feels like it's been a little while. We're back again with the one and only Nate Thompson for president from Team Love Wins. It's been a little while. It's probably been about 2 months since we actually ran one of these. The last one was Mike and it was amazing. This is the second last one. After this, we've only got one more and then we're back at GYLS, which is amazing. As always, for questions and comments, you post in the Momentum Sessions Facebook group in the pinned post right under there. I know a bunch of you guys have already been liking it, so you already know where it is. Shout out to the people who are already here. Without further ado, here's Nate.
Hey everybody, it's awesome to be here. I'm super excited for this, and I just had such a ball with Sergio going through this process and coming up with the concept and even doing some of the fun live videos that we did in the beginning. So thank you for being here. And I just want to start with a shout out right now to the Anthony Robbins Foundation, to Tony Robbins for even coming up with this idea and creating this space we call Global Youth Leadership Summit. And then a shout out to Sergio for everything that he's done to put these momentum sessions together. I mean, I'm so in love with this idea that we can come together every month and different people can share things that they're passionate about and we all can continue to learn and be in community together. So thank you, Sergio. And then finally to all of you for coming and just making time today. I know you have a lot of things going on and this is a very cool way to continue the learning together. So thank you for being here. And to all of you who will watch this later, awesome too. This next one is about being active. I want you guys to blow up the comments. And sometimes, you know, you say one or two things in these momentum sessions. I mean, blow up the comments. I want questions, feedback, ideas, resources. If something resonates with you, put it in there. Just blow up the comments and you get a virtual fist bump from me for jumping in as we go. Sergio is going to be letting me know what's happening. I can't see the live feed on the Facebook stuff, but he's going to keep me in the loop. So I want to do this pre-work check-in real quick. We tried something fun and new. So Sergio and I, when we were coming up with the concept, said Facebook Live had just dropped right when we started talking about it. And we said, what if we do some teaser videos, some live feeds, and it didn't work out every week because sometimes I was traveling, but I just want to know and put it in the comments. What did you think? Was that fun? Was it valuable? Should we do more? Because I just want to know if that helped with the context. And as you can see the videos on the right, there was external conversation, internal conversation, labels, the story of two wolves, you know, so all of that was designed to give you guys insight and get you going with pre-work and to start your mind processing on that so that you had some discovery, your personalized discovery coming into the session. So just let us know so we can do more if you liked it. Okay, without further ado, let's get to it. So stops along the way. This is our journey today. We're looking at the map here and the whole goal is to raise awareness. Learn the building blocks. Now, I'm going to call these basic building blocks. Identity is a massive, massive subject in psychology, and there's tons of research. There's actually an entire handbook dedicated to self and identity. And so we're just going to do the basic building blocks today. Set the groundwork, open your mind and your reticular activating system to all of what identity is and can be for you. We'll show you some, I'll show you a couple examples. We'll do some Q&A at the end like we always do. And then I have an action learning assignment for all of you because you have to put this in place right away. So have you ever thought, I'm certain that you've had a thought like this or something similar. Who am I? Who do I want to become? Who should I be? Who do others want me to be? Does it even matter? Right? Does this idea of identity even matter? And the thing to know is that you're in good company. If you've ever wondered any of these questions, is that 100% of us, all human beings at some point in our lives, have these questions. And the reality is at many points in our lives, because we're constantly evolving as people. So from birth to death, really, we're shaping who we are, and that's constantly playing out. Now, here's the super cool thing about it. You know, in the past, identity has been called a lot of things, and it actually doesn't get a lot of airplay. Goals gets a lot of airplay. Dreams gets a lot of airplay, but identity doesn't get as much airplay. But the really interesting thing about it is identity is the software. It is the code that makes you uniquely you. And what's super cool about that is that you get to write and adjust that code. So when you think about goals and dreams and how those come to life, it is the code or the software of you, identity, that makes all of that possible. So if you could start to think of it that way, it's foundational, it's essential to who we are. I am is a global identity statement, one of the most important statements that we'll ever use. These words are some of the most powerful and important words you will ever speak. I am. I am is a creation, right? I am is empowering or disempowering. And I am can be whatever we put after it. And it is part of that code and that software that makes up who we are and literally shapes our life every day. However we define ourselves, I am, and the opposite or flip, the mirror effect of I am is I'm not. And this I am, I'm not global identity statement is playing out every day, moment to moment. So this is the journey. And the journey really is a journey of two roads. You have the software playing out, and the question, the $1 million question is it healthy or unhealthy? Is it getting you closer to your goals or further from your goals? Is it empowering or disempowering? That software, the way it's running, is creating the two roads, right? And the way that we use your identity, our identity, my identity, is to enact it every day and have it drive us down the path of empowering or disempowering, healthy or unhealthy. This is the beginning of my identity journey. It was June of 1998, and I woke up in the middle of the night with the terrifying thought, this can't be my life. Something has gone wrong. It can't end this way. It can't go this way. And there were some very specific reasons that I had this moment in the beginning of what I call the tipping point in my journey for identity. And it begins right after I graduated from high school. I went to college, and I had this identity of being an athlete, and I wanted to play football, and I watched my dad love football my whole life, and I grew up with that, and I went to college to play football, and I hated it. I didn't like the school I was at. I didn't like playing football. I didn't even like this subject I was studying, kinesiology, and I had this sort of I'm lost moment, and I quit. I dropped out of college, and I went home with my tail between my legs to the absolute disappointment of my parents. And my dad sternly looked at me and said, you can go to school or you can work, but you can't sit here at the house. And I took odd jobs around town, and many of those were dead-end jobs. And so I was in this place of feeling lost. All the things that I thought I was going to do aren't working out. I'm not sure who I am, and I'm working these odd jobs. Okay, this clearly isn't it for me. I need to start to try something new. And I didn't really know what to do, but a couple of my buddies from high school wanted to switch schools as well. So I joined up with them, and we went to a University of Northern Colorado, which is another school nearby, and we got a place together, and it was fall semester. So when we enrolled, it was only a few months into school, and I thought, okay, everything's going to get back on track. This is going to work out. My life's going to start going the way it should again. And within a few months, one of my roommates and another very good friend of mine from high school went to a party. We're drinking and driving, no seatbelts, rolled the car, both were ejected, and both died. So I was already reeling from the dropping out of school, get back into school, think I'm back on track. My roommate dies and my other good friend dies. I pack up his clothes and take them back to his family, and we bury them both on Christmas. This is Christmas 1997. And I come back from the funeral. I talk to our landlord because now we don't have enough money to pay the rent. Our landlord says, look, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to leave because you either pay the rent or you got to go. So we get evicted, and I move to a new place with my other friend that I still have with me as part of the roommate situation, and just drop out of school again. Right. So I'm having these series of issues and false starts, and I'm just very, very confused about life and what should be happening. And that was December. In March, just following that, a couple of months, my brother turns 16, gets his license, and gets caught in a snowstorm. This is totally random accident, but it was black ice. Black ice happens in Colorado. He's inexperienced. He doesn't know how to handle it. No seatbelt, rolls the car, is ejected. And when the ambulance finally finds him, he's not breathing well anymore. He has third-degree brain tears. He has a traumatic brain injury. He's laying out on the road in the cold and the snow, and they have to trach him to allow him to breathe again. If you don't know what a tracheotomy is, it's an incision in the neck. And here's why that matters so much to the story. Matt was a singer and an actor prior to that wreck. So when they trached him, singing's over. Once the cut happens, the vocal cords are damaged, it's over. So with his traumatic brain injury, he spends years learning how to walk, talk, eat, dress himself again. He lost his identity in this accident. So I'm learning about my identity, trying to figure out life. Now my brother's lost his identity and he's trying to figure out life. My parents moved to Denver to be with him at Spalding Hospital. So they drop everything, which is basically their whole life, to be with him and their identity. And all of us are trying to just figure all of this out. And in full disclosure, I wasn't making good decisions. I wasn't talking to people, and I wasn't in a healthy place. And one night, my friend and I went out and had some drinks. When I came back, so this is probably May-ish, 1998, after we had some drinks, I went home. A girl called. We had unprotected sex, produced an unplanned pregnancy, and I officially had put what I would call the icing on the cake of the most challenging time in my life and the lowest point of my life. And it was after this series of events that I was in absolute desperation. This can't be my life. There has to be a better way. I can't continue like this. And the idea that I'm not the first person to go through challenges was pivotal for me. Hundreds of millions of people have lived before me. People tried things to get better results out of life. There has to be a better way to do this. And so that tipping point was the beginning of this remarkable journey on identity that I took. The first book I ever read was Peter McWilliams' Life 101. I pulled it off a shelf in a random bookstore. That important step is what helped me to start to shape my identity. And while this is a bit of a heavy story, and that was a crazy series of events, the reality is that we all go through, all human beings go through challenging times. And it's not a question of if, it's when. And the even better question is, how will you handle it? And do you have the support mechanisms that can help you move through that? And do you have an identity that can help you last and survive those challenges? So Tony has this beautiful quote: identity is this incredible invisible force that controls your whole life. It's invisible, like gravity is invisible, but it controls your whole life. And that gets back to that idea of this is the software that you use every day to decide empowering or disempowering. Now, when I was in that place, clearly I was disempowered. And I can tell you right now that that incredible force at that time in my life was off track. My internal conversation was completely disempowering. And why does that matter so much? This is why. Let's make it really simple. Identity is the story that you tell yourself about yourself all day, every day. All day, every day. So when I was in that place, I was saying things to myself like, I'm broke. My friends are dead. I've dropped out of college twice. I'm a screw up. All the things that I thought were going to happen aren't. And I was sort of in this pool of disempowering thoughts that was doing no service. And I kept telling myself that every day. So what happens when I put that kind of energy out to the world, when that's how I talk to myself, I get more of that. And it's also because I'm focused on it. At that time, I was focused on it. So that's what I saw. That's what I picked out in the world, that everybody else had a better life than me. And I was in this giant victim place of woe is me. Nobody else has it as bad as me. So I tell you that story so that you can kind of understand that sometimes we all fall into that trap. And identity is the software. It is the programming. It is the sense of self. It is that inner knowing and inner story that gives us the ability to rise to our highest highs, achieve our potential and have our greatest successes, be trapped in mediocrity, right? Life's okay. Everything's meh, or crash, right? At that point in my life, absolutely a crash. But once I got started on a new journey and started to change the software through identity, is when all the amazing things started to happen. So let's take a look at that. When I started to change my identity, my life started to change. Like there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Whenever we're going through stuff like that, there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and that internal conversation is that light. It's the guiding post. It's the stake in the ground that tells us who we are and what we stand for and what we value and what we're committed to. So I want to spend the rest of this time taking a look at that, because it's more than a word. So much more than a word. Let's unpack it. So how it's created. I think that we would be remiss if we don't recognize that we are social creatures that are born into massive culture, socialization, right? We inherit this. From the moment we're born, our world starts to tell us who we are. It's in our race, it's in our nationality, it's in our state, it's in our town, it's in our schools, it's in our faith, it's in our social groups, our teams, our family, our friends. This whole kind of ecosystem starts to tell us who we are. But that's not the only thing. There's also our psychology, because we are creatures of choice, which makes us unique. We can define who we are. We can take all those inputs and start to say yes or no to those inputs and shape who we want to be. Out of all of that noise and all those experiences and thoughts and pieces of feedback, we can say, I choose this. I am this. So let's look at these elements. Sometimes people think identity is just a word, but there's actually a lot of building blocks that are inside of the wrapper of the word identity. Self-esteem, let's start top left, self-esteem. Your value and your worth, in your perception, your value and your worth. Top right, self-image, how you see yourself, your physical appearance, your the words that you use to describe yourself, how you articulate yourself, your image of you to others. Self-efficacy, bottom right, what you believe you can and can't do. This is really interesting and different. So let me kind of highlight this. A character judgment is, Nate, you're a bad person. That would be a character judgment about the whole of me, who I am, right? The self-efficacy is different. It says, what do I believe that I can and can't do? Like, apply for that internship, go for that college, or go to semester at sea, right? Or take advanced placement classes, AP classes if you're in the States. These are moments where our efficacy is called in. Can I do this or not? And then the last one, bottom left, is ideal self. This is the aspiration of who we want to become. So when someone says, what's your identity? Now you all know there's a lot more inside of there. And in a very awesome way, you can respond back to that person and say, well, which component? Because there are a lot of building blocks inside of the wrapper of identity. And the reason why I'm pulling these out and lifting them up is because it's vital that you start to understand, and we all start to learn together and build together how to shape our identity. The more you know about it, the easier it is to shape it, right? Shaping your self-esteem, your self-image, your self-efficacy, your ideal self. You can grab these components and start to work with them independently. It's much harder to just use a broad brush stroke like identity. Well, what do you mean? Here's what we mean. All right. It's also important to know it's a continuum. Like identity just being a word is too simplified. Identity isn't good or bad. It's not black or white. There's actually a continuum here of unhealthy, some of both, and healthy. And we ebb and flow on this continuum all the time. So there's no need to sort of judge and say, oh, my identity is screwed up. I might as well just call it here. I'm done. Right? It can be on a particular given day or in a particular situation or even a particular building block of identity. For example, say your self-efficacy or your ability to, or your what you think you can and can't do is very strong, and you feel strong in that place, and you have a lot of references for being strong in that place. But let's say your self-image isn't as good as it could be. So on one end, you're healthy, and on the other, maybe you're some of both or unhealthy. This continuum can start to give you some language for, here's how I think I'm doing with that. And I know I'm giving you some advanced material here, but leaders, you can do this. You do this already, and this additional language will help you start to be even better at that kind of work for yourself and for others. And that's the key about leadership, is to be a leader, you must have and embrace your own leadership identity. That's vital, right? If you doubt that you are a leader or that you could even be a leader, then how could it ever be possible? You can't. The software is not accurate. But when you start to take this on and have a very healthy leadership identity, a personal identity, an identity of someone who contributes to help shape the identity of others in a very healthy and beautiful way, right? That's when these amazing things can start to happen. Okay, so how is this shaped? Because it's not entirely up to us. Let me say that differently. Someone could only listen to themselves. I wouldn't recommend that. There's a whole field called emotional intelligence, which is about self and social awareness, and I highly recommend that you use the full circle here. The internal conversation is what you're saying to yourself. This is all the pre-work videos of your external conversation, internal conversation. How are you talking about it yourself? What are the words you're saying? Is it healthy or unhealthy? What are the labels that you're using? How are you encoding it? And think of it like this, which is just a metaphor that I've always loved. We get up every morning and push play. Bop, right? Every morning on this story that we tell ourselves about ourselves all day long. And our internal conversation is the biggest driver of that, because we're constantly rehashing those things. But this is the call out with the external feedback. It's very important to listen to external feedback and adjust on the fly. Tony always talks about making adjustments, right? In his ultimate success formula, one of the biggest steps is make an adjustment, right? Notice what you notice, make an adjustment. But here's the interesting thing. As you get to external feedback, you get to decide if it's valid and true and in alignment with who you are and where you want to go. Which brings us to the very, very important next point. Choice. Viktor Frankl wrote this amazing book, which I'm going to show you in a minute. It's a beautiful, beautiful articulation of all that we're talking about here today in shaping one's identity through the most amazing and most horrific experiences. Between the stimulus and the response, there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose. Our response, in the space, we get to choose. In our response lies our growth and freedom. Tony says it another way: in the moment of decision, our destiny is shaped. Choice and identity matters. It's vital. See, we get to decide, do I want to be about this? Do I want to put my flag in the ground, my stake in the ground about this? I am, I'm not is choice. And that's how we shape our identity. And we can say no if there's a piece of external feedback where someone says, hey, Nate, I think that you should give up transformation work, human development work, professional development work. I think you're terrible at it. I think you should give up. My choice in that moment would be, I've never been more passionate about anything in my life. There's no way I'm giving this up. I choose not to listen to that piece of feedback. But it's also important to know that this changes over time. This is a really cool picture of the reality that from the moment we're born, our identity is shaping as a toddler, as a kid, as a preteen, as a teen, as a young adult, as an adult. Right? And as we start to age and become more senior in life, we're still shaping and reshaping our identity. This is a natural process that we all go through, which is why in the beginning we said, is it normal to ask these questions? Who am I? Who should I be? Who do others want me to be? Yeah. And you're going to ask them again and again and again. This is completely normal, and it is the arc of life. We're all going to go through it. And the beautiful thing about it is when you get good at this now, as you look at those other phases of life, imagine how advanced and powerful and good you'll be with this, because you have so much experience with it. And as a leader, so many people will come to you and say, what should I do here? How should I think about this? How can I make this better? And you will have the language and the tools and the ability to help them shape their identity in a really healthy and powerful way. And keep in mind, give yourself some reprieve and some flexibility here. It's not possible for anyone to be always on point, or there is absolutely no ever expectation to always be perfect about identity. In fact, if there was a word I would strike from the dictionary, it's perfect. I think it's a lie. There's no such thing. And when people in the terms of who they want to be even insert that word, really bad things start to happen. So instead, think of it as progress. Progressing with my identity. And if I take a step back, I'm okay with that, because everything is learning. And there are times when I do. There are times when my identity skyrockets, and there are times when I take a step back and I go, hang on, let me evaluate that. What could I be saying to myself better? I posted a shout out to Pepper in the team leadership group about my identity around dancing, right? I've never taken a dance class in my life. And while I love it and it's fun, I know that I'm not as good as I could be with it. But what I'm doing is starting to shape my identity contextually around dancing. So Pepper, big shout out as you help me with that. I promise you, you have a aura of beauty about dancing. You're an amazing example of a contextual identity where she'll stand in front of 3,000, 5,000 people and rock it. And it's beautiful. You know, Felix does that from the stage. Marlon does that from the stage. Harry does that from stage. And it's not just about stage. It's all the team leaders rock this beautiful aura of who I am and my contribution to you and my passion for this work. So it's about the expression of our identity and how we give it to the world. It's not about being up on the stage. So let's keep this going. Ooh, the bazillion-dollar question. You, right? I don't care what story you've told yourself in the past. I don't care how you used to think everything like this worked. At the end of the day, you decide. You get to choose your identity. And I know there are social pressures. I know there are parental pressures. I know there are friend and family and faith pressures, right? Even race pressures, nationality pressures. And there are infinite examples of people who have chosen their path and found a way, a healthy way to move through that, right? And so you can look in the past. There are biographies for miles. There are current people right now, and I'm going to show you some examples in a few minutes. We talk about people who have found a way to write their own story, and that's the way to think about it. This is your story. You get to write it, and you get to shape it just as much as possible. Keep it healthy, keep it flexible, and learn as you go. It's okay to continuously improve this thing. So here's that book I promised you about. This is one of many research pieces of research, excellent examples. And if you all want more, I can make some recommendations. There's a handbook on identity and self and research. So, and it lists all the research from everyone from Freud to Carl Rogers and Erickson and everyone in between. So this particular book, though, is a true story about him surviving Auschwitz. It's a Nazi death camp in how he found and made an identity for himself, a compelling future, and said, I'm going to get out of this. And when I do, I'm going to create something that helps the world. It's called logotherapy, but it's a remarkable story about the horrific events that took place and the beautiful illustration of how he found his choice to define himself in that moment and have it be powerful, so powerful, in fact, that while people who didn't have hope were dying around him, he was able to thrive out of that and create this amazing life. So I highly recommend you read it. It's one of the best books ever. If you look on lists of books that you must read, this is one of those books. All right, so here are some examples. I promised you some examples. I just picked some. There's so many to choose from. I picked a couple because I think they illustrate in a very different way this idea of who are you going to be in this world? Who am I? Who can I be? Well, these are all people who have come from very different backgrounds to define themselves in a powerful way in this world. Now, you might not agree with the way that these people have chosen to live their lives or the identity they have, but I hope as you continue on this journey of leadership that you can come to a place where you can appreciate and respect where people are coming from, even if those aren't your values. So Nick and Malala and Boyan and Miley are all doing very different things. Clearly, Nick has wowed the world with his ability to overcome no limbs and live an extraordinary life and inspire the world. Malala was an activist for educating women, girls, and was shot for it. And not only survived, but has become an icon and a Nobel Peace Prize winner, the youngest ever, for her just standing, putting a stake in the ground and saying, everyone should have the right to learn. And I'm going to keep fighting for this, even if you try to kill me. which is an unbelievable I am identity in this world. Boyan is a young man who at 16 looked at all the plastic in the ocean and said, I want to try to figure this out. I'm interested. And the identity of I can do this. I am a person who can figure this out. Just for a second, let's wrap our head around cleaning the oceans. And he came up with an idea that is in place now. He has won a ton of awards. He's got a ton of funding. He did his TED Talk on this, and his idea is in place now, working. Okay? So this is all of you. This is all of us. Anybody can start to shape their identity and go for something. Put a stake in the ground and say to the world, this is who I am. Miley Cyrus, we all know her from when she was a little kid as Hannah Montana, right? And did she have an epic identity shift? So in identity shift land, there is evolution. Evolution is incremental small change. And there is revolution, right? Which is explosive identity change. Miley Cyrus said to the world, Hannah Montana is dead. I'm done with that. And I am going to be so clear that you will never forget, right? And she has. Now, some of you may not agree with that. It's not even about that. It's about the recognition of how she's shaping her identity and how she's intentionally doing it. Now, some parts of that may be unhealthy, but here's the thing. In my view, if she gets to a better place, then the bumps in the road were worth it. Okay. So I think this is a great point right now. As I said, those are the building blocks. I wanted to start to lay a foundation down. There's this part in your brain called the reticular activating system that is minute by minute going to be turned on to this. And I know some of the other things you guys have all been doing have been opening your mind to this. The more your RAS is turned on, the more you're going to start to see this and work with it and shape with it and dance with it in the world for yourself and for others. And the key to this is language. From the very beginning, internal conversation, external conversation. How are you talking to yourself? How are you describing yourself to others? And how are you choosing to listen to the feedback around you? So I'm hopeful that these building blocks are easy to understand and helpful to give you traction and momentum, which is the whole point of what we're doing today. Now, before I get into the action learning assignment, actually, you know what? I'll give you the action learning assignment now, and we'll do QA in a minute. Here's your action learning assignment. So you're going to work with a partner or a group from Global Youth. I highly recommend you get together in groups, but if you just want to do it with a partner, that's fine. But complete this exercise together, which I'll show you it in a moment, and then share it with each other. And then post it if you're done. Share it in the group. Share it in the momentum sessions if you feel comfortable. No pressure, but that's the beauty of this, to post it and start to share. That the kicker is to teach it. And there's nothing better for learning and feeling like your self-efficacy around identity is strong, your ability to do, it's to teach it. So to take this information and go out to whoever, your school, your community, your faith, your friends, your family, and teach about identity. Do it once, do it twice, do it 10 times, do it 100. Here's the form. It's called a 2-column. It's very, very simple. And the assignment is to start to, and many of you probably did this in your pre-work, start to write your old identity story. What's your old story about your identity? And this is the labels, the words, the I am statements, the I'm not statements, the other things that you believed that you might not have even created. Someone might have given you that at some point. Like maybe you were in 3rd grade and a boy or a girl said, hey, you're ugly. And maybe you believed that for a long, long time. And it's just an example, but all of that crap, you got to write it down and start to bring it into the open. Take it out of the blind, bring it into the open. And then write your new identity. And it's not necessarily an opposite one for one. Don't even get worried about, if I said this, I have to change it to this. Don't worry about that. this is your new identity. The words, the labels, the I ams, the I'm nots, the ideal self, the self-image, the what you can and can't do, write that stuff. It doesn't have to be in a paragraph form. It doesn't have to be coherent. It can be bullets. It can be scribbles. It can be passionate outbursts. Just write it. And here's the thing. It's organic. You're always going to be shaping it. That's the nature of all of this. So when you start to bring it out of the blind and the hidden into the known, the Johari's window, you can start to shape it and work with it like clay. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And as my experience, once I started shaping my identity, my life started to change, and it has never stopped. I've achieved more, grown more, created more, contributed more, served more than I ever imagined. And I feel like I'm just beginning. So I hope and wish that you can have that kind of an amazing experience. And even more is through the tough times, which I've continued to have some tough times. 2008, the global economic recession, was a tough time for me and my family. And I'm so grateful that I had these tools to keep me on track and help me drive through. It was so much better. And I actually turned those moments into fuel and into strength and into courageous stories that helped serve others. So I wish this for you. And that wraps our content. I think we have a nice chunk of time here for Q&A, and it's very important to me to do that. So Sergio, can you take us into that?
Nate, that was unbelievable. And before I even look at any of the questions, which we have a bunch of posts, I just want to honor you for the authenticity, the honesty, the transparency. It was unbelievable. It was incredible.
Thank you.
Right near the beginning, Luis posted, "I'm skipping the morning part of the Brian Tracy event I'm at because I'm so hooked to this momentum session."
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. If you want to quit sharing your screen, we can go straight to your thing. Pepper posted a bunch of times in a bunch of different places, so let me try and round them up. Shout out to Pepper because she's been on here the whole time. Powerful transparency, she posted at the beginning, which is so true.
Let me cancel. Oh, here we go. I got it. I just got to find my button. Okay. That should be good, right?
Yeah, you're back. All right. Pepper posted a bunch of different things. Nate, you're so kind and generous. Thank you. Your series and my focus on identity and physical body as I return my body to pre-surgery fitness. And then action learning assignment. Oh, I think she just spelled it out. So for those of you watching, the questions you can post anywhere that I shared the video. So if you're on here, wherever you got to it, ideally in the Momentum Sessions Facebook group in the pinned post. Now I want to start with a question for you while people catch up. What are your top 3 or top 5 I am statements? Because I know you have a ton of them and they're all empowering. What if you had to choose your top 3 most powerful ones, what would they be and why?
So my purpose statement includes a lot of those. I'm a force for good, empowering people and enabling transformation in this world. That's the one I say to myself constantly, all the time, and it guides everything I do. So I am a force for good is in my bones and how I organize my life. Enabling people. I am a force for enabling people. So I think every day, how can I, in the smallest ways, it doesn't have to be some grandiose thing, to help, it could be a kind word, it can be an act of service, it can be a random act of kindness, it can be, in my line of work, I do transformation work in a corporation, a very large global asset management firm. And I have the chance every day to do everything from learning and development, executive coaching, strategic interventions, conflict transformation. So it's always there for me, and it's in the DNA of who I am. I say in my bones, right? So I am a force for good, you know, is kind of think of it like the lens on which I see the world. How can I go out and I am that every day and live that every day? Now, there are plenty of other things too, but I guess I just want to highlight that because actually, here's another cut on that. My primary question is how can I be a loving and present husband and father while still living my passion and purpose? Now, this is really important because the I am behind that is I am a present and loving husband and father before my career. This is very, very important. I'm not judging anyone, but my choice is I want to be present for my kids. I am about them and my wife first, and I will find a way to work around my career and make it amazing still, but not at the expense of them. So I guess there's an I am and an I'm not in there as well.
Yeah, very nice. Let me see. There was a bunch of different people posting. I shared it in a bunch of places, so I have to kind of go through each one. Let me see. I think Kayla White said she was watching, so shout out to her. No question yet. I think people were just so mesmerized by your talk that they weren't able to formulate a question.
I want y'all to know if that was the case, awesome. Or if it was, you guys have full freedom to give me feedback. If I could make it more simple, or if I could change it in any way to make it better, let me know. My whole goal is just to try to illuminate identity, and your feedback is welcome.
That was incredible. Pepper just posted a question. You did such a great job of catching your I am statement about dancing. Explain how you, in the moment, catch yourself in a human moment and positively build from there.
Yeah, that's a great one. So here's the secret sauce of catching yourself in the moment is emotion. Whenever we say something disempowering to ourselves, or if we notice that piece of feedback is coming from the outside world, 100% of the time, our energy starts to change, right? Our emotion and our body starts to change. In that we feel first, and we're actually genetically hardwired that way. The amygdala, or the reptilian part of the brain, is emotionally hardwired. So that hits first, and our prefrontal cortex, or the intelligent part of our brain, doesn't come until second. So the reason why I say that brain science piece is I listen or pay attention to, or my sensory acuity is up for my emotion. And there are moments right in the moment where I can know and feel in my body, I'm saying this to myself in a negative way. I'm judging myself in a negative way. There are times where I'll even articulate something, I'll say it and I'll go, I don't like how I said that, and I don't like what that's creating for my identity. And I'll say out loud, can I have a do-over? Let me say that again. I don't like how that came off. And I try to get ahead of it as fast as possible, because I don't like those things to persist or sit out there, right? And so my strategy is to feel it, notice it right away, and go, okay, I need to shape this. Sometimes I do it privately, and sometimes I do it publicly.
That was a great answer. Not a question, but just a comment from Kayla White. Thank you so much to think about and process. Thank you so much, Nate. Yeah, and I remember saying I think I posted it in the 2-minute drips that we did, the pre-videos. You gave so much value in 2 minutes. Your session went 40 minutes, and like 10-15 minutes, and I'm like, wow, this could be a full session. And then 20 minutes in, I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like 2 sessions.
Yeah.
35-40 minutes in, it was just unbelievable.
That was kind of the trick of this is, as I said, identity, and you guys all know, identity is such a big topic. You know, how do you hit this thing in a high level way that gives perspective but doesn't get too far into the weeds, because you can only do so much in an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you did a ton, and we have about 10 more minutes or less. So for the people watching, if you have any questions for Nate, now's the time. I've got another one for you. So if you have a disempowering identity, a disempowering story that you've been led to believe over 10 or 15 years, how does one go about reaching the tipping point where you change it? Like how, because do you just wake up one day and say, okay, I'm done. I'm going to change my mind about something I've believed my entire life about myself? Or does there have to be a serious traumatic emotional event? Can you just decide? Like what's that process for
Yeah, so
changing
those are
a
great
really pivotal part of who you are?
Yeah, those are great lead-ins, Sergio, and it's really inspiration or desperation. Usually, one of those causes that moment to happen, and you don't have to wait for it to be enacted upon you. Anyone can choose inspiration or desperation. Mine, I chose it because I was in a terrible place and I was sick of it. But sometimes people go, I just want more for myself, right? And that's the beginning. And the cool thing about this is it's not about 0 to 100. It's about baby steps. So challenging that assignment, that action learning assignment, is one of the best ways to start to challenge old beliefs. I mean, anybody, like this is one example I said in a video, but I love this example. So when people talk about the things that they say to themselves, and it's awful, and they say it over and over, and I've been there too. And when I say, okay, take those words and write them down. Now I want you to picture a child. Say those words to a child. Say them again. Say them every day. And that person's just like, oh my God, what am I doing? There's no way I'm going to treat another human this way. Well, why are you treating yourself that way? You know, so there's really cool, simple ways to just start to illuminate that and go, I'm not going to say to myself anymore. Like, here's an example for me. I dropped out of college twice. Today, I have a master's in organizational leadership. I have 3 degrees. It's because I said, okay, things didn't go for me the way I thought they were, but that doesn't mean I can't take baby steps and start to chip away at this thing. My chipping away at it was, I can go get a degree. I know I can. And I started with an associate's. That's the lowest level degree I could get. I went at nights while I worked full time and chipped away at that thing. And my whole mantra was, I can get a degree. I just get one. Just get started. Just get through this class. And I am a person who can do this. I can learn. I can get back on track. I can turn this around. And for me, it was just starting that process. So if you hear anything out of all of that, is grab onto, it's baby steps. Start to shift your language, start to shift that I am statement, and start to take some action, even if it's small, and momentum will follow you. And that is the only way I got to 3 degrees in this example. Is once I got one done, I went, I can do more. I'm certain of that. And so I went and did another one. And then I thought, I literally had the thought, like, I should go for a master's, right? And this isn't just about a degree, but it's about that momentum. I had so much momentum by that second one. I thought, I can improve the quality of life for me and my family. I can increase my wage and become more marketable in my field. Hell, I'm going to go for another one. And it just baby steps.
That's amazing. Pepper has a question, but I have one really quick. When's the PhD coming?
Oh my gosh. So here's the truth about Nate. Full disclosure. PhD is research-based. I'm not in love with research. If I was going to do something else, it would probably be a MEd or something like that. I don't even know. For me, it's not about the credentials much. Honestly, getting the credentials for me was more about breaking my old beliefs and just smashing them, right? I don't know if I know I'm going to add some more credentials that are relevant, but it's not about just having another piece of paper for me. It was about the journey.
Oh, for sure. I'm going to call you Professor Nate anyway. Pepper's got another one. What if a person is getting amazing feedback and you're not embracing? It's as if the person is saying you're wrong.
So in this example, the receiver is getting amazing feedback. Am I interpreting that right?
It says, what if a person is getting amazing feedback and you are not embracing?
Okay. Okay, yeah. So there's dissonance. So dissonance is a term for you don't necessarily believe it, or it's not you're not holding it. So here's the thing. It's just kind of true for goals too, Pepper. That's a great question. Is the only way this stuff can begin to happen is if the person can embrace it. So I could give Sergio or Pepper compliments all day, but if their identity doesn't match with that, if their model doesn't match with that, it will just bounce off, right? So if you notice that whether it's you or another person in your life, that it's not sticking, you have to go look at what's under that. I keep saying this, bring the blind into the awareness, bring the hidden into the clear of what is the belief that's counter to that, that's actively blocking that other belief. And if you can start to look at that and ask yourself a question, Wayne Dyer did this beautifully. If you guys haven't ever heard of Wayne Dyer, he's an amazing man. He passed this last year, but he has a huge body of work. And one of his things said is, ask yourself, is it true? Can you be absolutely 100% sure that that belief is true? And if you aren't, then what else could be true? And you just start to put a crack in that old belief and wedge it open.
Awesome. All right, we're almost out of time, so I've got one last question for you. And then after answering that question, you can kind of wrap it up and send us home. So I love the metaphor of how the disempowering belief and identity that you give yourself, if you imagine saying that to a child, it totally just breaks your pattern. You just can't even do it anymore. I work with someone who gives themselves some pretty severe disempowering beliefs. And like what Pepper said, the feedback that we give, changing our approach every time, it just doesn't stick.
Mm.
What would you say we could do to help them get rid of a disempowering identity when they pretty much are very resistant and hesitant to any kind of feedback?
Yeah.
Because I know the metaphor, I don't really like it, but you can't save a drowning person. You have to save the person who's treading water.
Yep.
Is it possible in your experience that it is possible to save someone who's drowning who doesn't want to be saved?
I think it's an important perspective. So the short answer is leverage is your best option, whether that's helping them find their compelling why. This is vital in change work. If someone doesn't have a compelling reason to do something or move forward or take action or become a better version or set a higher standard, it's not going to happen. And it doesn't help to sit there and try to push them up a hill, right?
Yeah.
They have to want it. But you can sometimes, through a compelling future or through pain, push enough leverage on this person in the situation, in the context, to cause them to go, I have a new perspective of this and I'm not willing to sit in this place anymore. That's kind of your best option. But to your point, and to Pepper's point, if someone is unwilling or even actively resisting, then you're not in the right place and they need to get to a better place. There's also one other thing that's worth saying here, and that's called secondary gain. This is a really interesting phenomena of psychology where someone is doing or believing a unhealthy belief about themselves, or they're exhibiting an unhealthy behavior. But if your sensory acuity is up and you pay close attention, sometimes you will find a secondary reason behind that that's giving them fuel or meeting their needs, right? So if you might be able to call that out and they'll go, oh my gosh, you just saw behind my curtain. So maybe that.
Cool. All right. So, any final thoughts, last minute things, send us home.
So thank you so much, Sergio. I had so much fun with this. Thank you to everyone who joined. I hope this is helpful. If you watch this later, please post in the comments if you find value here. If you all want the deck, I'm happy to turn that into a PDF and just post it out there if it'll be of value to you. And I'm here to serve and continue to be a resource. So feel free to ping me with questions and thoughts and comments. And I am super excited to see you all in a couple of months. So live with passion, and I'll see you soon.